As much as I love talking about Fujifilm, it's time to switch gears and talk about my photography workhorse, my Sony A7 Mark III. This camera has been with me for over 4 years and I've taken a whopping 505,553 shots with it. The big question is my camera still alive and working well? As a professional photographer with several years of experience under my belt, I owned only 3 cameras throughout my career. In 2012 I purchased my first DSLR camera, a Canon 600D. Then I bought my first full-frame camera 6D because I couldn't afford 5D Mark III. And finally, at the end of 2018, I switched to Sony and bought my first mirrorless camera, A7 Mark III. When I look back on it, it's strange to think that I felt like the Canon 6D was with me forever, even though it was only 3.5 years. And now I already spent more time with my Sony and time just flies. Switching to a mirrorless system was a game changer for me, and I'll tell you why. First and foremost, the size of this A7 Mark III is a significant advantage over DSLR cameras. During the transition, I even sold my Tamron 2470 lens and bought a Tamron 2875 that's smaller and lighter. Losing 4mm on the wide side wasn't a big deal, but the less weight on my kit made a noticeable difference. Another benefit for me was the option to shoot through the screen instead of viewfinder. I never really enjoyed shooting through the viewfinder because after shooting with various focal lengths all day, my eyes would start to feel uncomfortable. One eye would adapt to different focal lengths and then have to adjust to its own focal length. I don't know how to explain it, but I hope it makes sense. And with mirrorless cameras, I can shoot from the waist while looking at the entire scene through a larger viewfinder, like the old medium format cameras I've always dreamt of using. The image quality of the A7 Mark III is excellent. The autofocus is throughout the entire image frame, providing greater flexibility to capture shots in focus. Face detection is also impressive and the camera performs well in low light conditions, which has given me the confidence to shoot more without a speedlight at weddings. But there is a downside to mirrorless cameras as well. Without mirrors inside, there's less protection for the sensor. Changing lenses increases the chance of dust getting on the sensor compared to DSLR cameras with mirrors. So with my Sony, dealing with dust on the sensor can be a pain. Shooting with a closed aperture in the studio tends to reveal dust on the images that need to be removed in editing. Then cleaning the sensor is a frustrating task as well that requires a tidy environment and careful precision. Any dry marks left on the sensor can result in blurry images on wider aperture. So, has my Sony camera been good? Did it meet my expectations? And most importantly, is it still alive and capable of doing job when I need it? Not too long ago, out of curiosity, I decided to check how many shots I've taken with it, since I worked on a lot of projects and shot many weddings over the years. For example, in the last 2 years, I have shot at least 25 weddings each year. Before that, I had about 10 weddings per year. And when it comes to weddings, I take a lot of pictures. And I mean a lot. From each wedding, I bring home almost a full 128GB card of raw images, plus an additional 32GB of images from my second camera. So roughly 4,000 images per wedding. I love taking photos and I tend to shoot a lot. But maybe I should reduce the high quantity of images from weddings in the future. If you shoot weddings, let me know how many images do you bring home. When I first discovered that I had taken over 500,000 shots with my Sony camera, I was blown away. I mean, I was hoping it was a reliable camera, but I never expected it to hold up as well after all these years. In contrast, let me tell you about a funny yet scary moment I had while using my Canon 6D on a second or third year. I was shooting a wedding and towards the end of the event I was capturing the first dance of the wedding couple. And as soon as the dance finished, the shutter on my camera broke. I felt a spike of adrenaline and a relief at the same time. It was fortunate that it happened when I had already taken all the shots I needed. And I even managed to capture one of my favorite shots of the wedding dance. Now let's get back to my experience with Sony. I have to say that the camera has been incredibly reliable. It has not broken down even once during the years I have used it. and the body itself has held up really well. On the other hand, when I was using the Canon camera in its third year, the rubber on the body started peeling off. So overall, Sony has given me a more reliable feel compared to Canon. So, after 4.5 years, am I planning to keep using my Sony, or am I considering upgrading to a Sony A7 IV, for example? Well, at my age and stage in my career, I think I have finally passed the stage of constantly wanting to upgrade, because you think the better gear will help make better shots. The A7 III is still a great camera with excellent functionality. It has a 24 megapixel sensor that is more than enough. I cannot think of any reason why I would need more megapixels unless I need to crop more, but this resolution is sufficient for making billboards, for example. So unless I am planning to do billboards, I don't know, on the moon, 24 megapixels is enough for me. It shoots in 4K and I use it to shoot videos for clients and YouTube. The maximum frame rate for 4K is only 30 frames per second. Yes, it would be nice to have an option to shoot in higher frame rate, but it's enough for me at the moment. The only thing that I would like to be improved is the sensor stabilization. So, what I plan to do with my Sony camera in the future is to keep using this camera, but with the silent shooting mode as much as possible, to avoid using the mechanical shutter. I'll only use the shutter shooting with studio lights or in other situations where I'll be using speed lights. This way I hope to prolong the lifespan of the shutter, as it won't be working as frequently. I understand that it won't last forever, and after having a million shots I'll need to keep an eye on it. Finally, let me give you my conclusion and some advice on whether it's worth buying the Sony A7 III camera today. I looked up the price for it, hoping that since I bought in 2018 the price would have significantly dropped and it would be easy to recommend this camera for purchase. But on B&H it still cost almost $2,000. I believe this is due that the camera is still popular and in demand. The problem is that the price is a bit too high for a new body, and recently Canon released R8 model that is very similar, but in some cases even better. For example, it can shoot 4K video up to 60 frames per second, and on B&H it costs only $1,500, which is insane. So today I think I wouldn't recommend buying A7 Mark III as a new, but if you are able to find used in good condition, remember you can shoot at least 500,000 shots, well, hopefully for everyone, then it can be a great option. Otherwise, make your research what's available on the market right now in that price range. But personally, I will keep using my Sony. Now I'm really interested to see how long will this camera be able to hold. Let me know in the comments what camera have you used the longest and how many shots have you made with it. And you can click here if you are looking for a camera and want to make the right choice. But for now, have a nice day and keep shooting.